So property trading, you've been property trading now for 15 years, 500 transactions, you said. So what will be the biggest tip you would give to somebody starting out and looking at property trading as a strategy to follow?
Find the deals.
Find the deals.
Can I just find it?
Right.
I've had numerous businesses. I had my own estate agent back in '99.
Right. Okay.
And it's the same with that business. It's the same with trading or investing. Whatever you're doing in property, without deals, you have no business. Full stop. You've got to find the deals first. It doesn't matter what the end result is, the exit strategy, you've got to find the deals first. So if you go out to find deals, you'll find the money or you'll find someone to do the deals with. Sure. Because that's the key. It's doing the right things to find the deals, and it's keeping on and on and on. You know, you've got that persistence to keep on, because this business is simple.
Sure.
You find something, you either sell it or keep it. My one is, I sell it. Simple as that. Take the money and run.
Yes.
It's a simple business model, but that it's not easy. It's hard, because you've got to keep on and on and on and on. I know people who give up after 4 weeks. I haven't found anything. Oh my God, I'm disheartened. If I've been through times when we've had quite lean periods where we haven't found a deal for a couple of months, I don't go, oh, I'm going to chuck the towel in.
Right.
Because I know that they're like buses, they'll come along 2 or 3 at a time.
Sure. That's the key. Yeah.
Keep on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over the last 15 years, I'm sure you've got some very, very exciting and interesting stories of transactions. But just what could you share with us? Let's say one of the worst and one of the best transactions that you've experienced in the last 15 years.
Yeah, okay.
You're smiling already. So
it's interesting because they were 1 month apart.
They're 1 month apart.
They were 1 month apart, and the loss came first, and the best one came second.
Do you think that's the right way round?
Losses are never easy.
Short term anyway.
Yeah, losses are never easy, but it's nice to know you've got something coming back in to cover.
Absolutely.
But within them transactions over 15 years, lessons are learned, serious lessons are learned. And there was the biggest loss was really forms one of my golden rules.
Right.
And that's never get emotional about stock or property generally. And at the time it was 2006, we was doing really well. I was driving a very expensive car, personalised number plate, thought I was Charlie Big Bananas, going around, and I'd been invited to have a look at this particular house, and all the local traders and developers were there.
Oh yes.
So there's me pulling up in my car. My ego's out of control. I can admit that now. My ego's out of control. And I'm thinking, I'll show this lot. I'm going to buy this house. It was round the corner from where I lived as well. and also, another lesson that I learned from it is that unless it's East London, we don't normally get involved in £200,000-300,000 transactions. This was 220 grand. I paid 220 grand for this house. Whereas I could have bought 2 individual units in, not far away from there.
Yes.
This was in Rainham, but I could have bought 2 million for half the money. So I've gone in there thinking, oh, I've got to buy this. I've got to, I'll show it. And I ended up paying 220 for it. It went through one auction.
Was that the full price, sir?
No, it was well above the asking price.
You paid above the asking price.
It's a good point there, because I'll touch on that later. But we do that regularly.
You do.
And still make a profit. This one I shouldn't have done. I should have listened. So I've agreed to pay at 220. And my business partner said to me, "You sure? That sounds a bit dear." Even he knew it was
Even he knew, yes.
So it went through one auction, never sold. It went through another auction, and never sold. And we finally put it in auction in December 2006. There's another lesson there. Don't ever.
And you viewed this in.
We exchanged before we completed it.
Oh right. So you've
owned
it for.
We've owned it for
3 or 4 months.
More than that. 6-7 months.
6-7 months.
And we borrowed against it because it was dead money. We needed money to trade, so we borrowed against it. So it was costing us money to borrow against it as well. Right. So it went finally sold in auction in 2006 December, which is never a good auction. That's another lesson.
Just before Christmas.
Just before Christmas, it's not a good auction. It's good. It's time to bag a bargain.
Good point.
And this guy bagged a bargain. He really did. So we just stuck it in there thinking of we'll put the reserve down to 180, guide it 180 to 200, and it'll find its own level, you know. But we didn't realise that only one person would be in the room to bid on it, and then Hannah fell at 180. We, with our costs, lost £56,000.
Wow.
And bearing in mind, I'm responsible for half of that, and responsible for Richard's half as well, because he's got to pay half the loss,
Yes, that's
as
right.
well as me. So I feel really bad for him, because he's having, you know, he's taking the loss.
And also, he was asking you not to buy it, wasn't he?
Effectively.
Right at the start.
He knew enough begged me not to buy it at one stage.
He didn't say I told you so, did he?
No, he didn't. He just said, that will teach you a lesson.
That would teach you a lesson.
Yeah,
Right.
that will teach you a lesson. So, but we've, you know, we've had a few you know, scrapes in the past. But interesting enough, at the same time we was going through that one, we was buying another one where the agent had rung me and said, I've got this house, I think it's haunted, and would I have a look at it and tell her what I want to pay for it? So I said, willingly. So I've come back out after viewing it and saying, well, I'd pay X, 100 grand I think it was. So she's gone, that seems a bit low. I said, well, why don't you go and have a look at it yourself? Now, she was so scared about going in the house, she wouldn't go in there. And the solicitor acting on behalf of the vendor was a woman as well, so they've got on really well about this ghost in this house. And she's going, don't go in there to the agent. So it was playing into my hands. But whilst we were negotiating it and trying to get it through, the agent had spoken to the solicitor and she said, well, I've got a problem because I've got 2 other transactions going through with the same vendor. Okay. Now, one of the most valuable commodities I know is information. So I just
mentioned that a few times actually, Paul.
So I said, well, what's the other house? Other houses. One had exchanged and one hadn't. And the other one we agreed to buy as well, which is another good deal. Right. So the month after we lost the £56,000, we actually made £90,000 on that other house. Fantastic. Plus, we bought the one linked transaction, and that made another 35,000. So it was 125 grand out of one source.
Wow. So
the 56 seems, you know, insignificant compared to that. It's still hard to lose, but that they were the extremes, and it's funny how they fall on the same.
Within 4 weeks of each other.
It's literally of each other. So.
Incredible. So did you feel nervous when you went into the haunted house, Paul?
No, I don't get nervous at all.
You didn't get nervous at all? No.
It's funny, it's another story I tell about a house we was trying to buy over in Gillingham, and we talked about earlier about paying over the odds for something.
That's right.
This was on for 125, it's all boarded up, there's no electricity, there's been a fire in there and it's absolutely full of junk inside. Agent's getting me to sign something to say that he's not responsible if I fall through the floor, cut myself on the door, or anything happens. So the picture he's building up is, oh, this is a dangerous house. The floor had literally gone in the dining room, and where they'd boarded it up, they'd unscrewed the boarding on one of the doors. The door was still locked, but it was one of them glazed doors.
Oh yes.
And where all the shards of glass were sticking out, you had to step through the door. So people were a bit concerned. There was a big queue of people there, and I just shouted out, "Does anyone see any rats? I don't like rats." Just to put the fear in God into a ton of people, because they start concentrating on rats.
Absolutely, yes.
And I want to knock everyone out of the way, knowing full well this was a cheap house. It was a cheap house, because it looked so bad.
This was the detached, was it?
That's it, detached one, yeah.
Yes.
And we'd end up buying that for 135, I think it was, and we sold that for 165 in the room.
So you paid over the asking price.
Over the asking price.
And you then made another £30,000.
That's right. Because it would been undervalued, because a lot of agents do undervalue stuff, and I'm very good at spotting undervalued assets.
Fantastic.